Welcome to Quality Time with MoreSteam. I am your host, Dan Swartwout. I hope you enjoyed the last two episodes that celebrated MoreSteam's 25th anniversary. I appreciate all of the great feedback. Thank you so much for listening. On today's episode, we start the next 25 years of MoreSteam with a very special guest. I am lucky enough to have on the show Aurorium's Global Director of Operational Excellence, Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, Kim Koning. This was a really fun conversation filled with some great insights, and I have to say that Kim is a funny guy who made me laugh on multiple occasions. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think you will too. And now, my chat, my discussion, my interview with Kim Koning. Today, we are so lucky to be joined on the program by Kim Koning. Kim is the Director of Operational Excellence Global, the Global Director of Operational Excellence at Aurorium. Kim, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Dan. It's my pleasure to be invited to participate in the program.
We are excited to have you on the show. I know you've been a long-time listener of the show because we've received some of your feedback, and it got me to thinking, well, you listen to the show, you like the show, you are a master black belt, totally immersed in the world of operational excellence. What better guest than to have you on the program itself?
I'm sure there could be better guests, perhaps, but I'll do my best. Now some of the people I work with, and I know a number of the people that have given the podcast, and I always like to think about the little nuggets I take away from them and what they talk about. So hopefully there'll be some opportunity to share some nuggets with others.
Well, fantastic. I appreciate your willingness to do so. A little bit about you, Kim. You grew up in Indiana, correct?
Yeah, Lafayette, Indiana, and went to Purdue University right there in West Lafayette. So I was there for the first 21, 22 years of my life. And then after graduating from Purdue, moved kind of all over the country, Chicago, Houston, St. Louis, Memphis, back to Chicago, Pittsburgh, back to Lafayette, and then some Chicago stuff. And then we moved to Michigan about 15 years ago.
Real Big Ten ties here
Yep.
at Quality Time with MoreSteam. I went to Ohio State, Purdue. We've had recent University of Illinois Champaign. I wanted to ask you a little bit because you went to McCutcheon High School, correct,
Oh,
in
yes.
Lafayette?
Yeah, very good. Yes.
And you were a wrestler. You were on the wrestling team, right?
Yes. Back in the day, a long time ago. Yes. Yes.
I recently went to the Ohio State Penn State wrestling meet about a month and a half ago. Tremendous discipline, tremendous dedication to be a wrestler at any level, high school, beyond. Is there anything that you took from wrestling because of the dedication and the discipline involved that you saw translated into the world of operational excellence, Lean Six Sigma?
Yeah. Probably my lack of dedication is the reason why I was not didn't my wrestling career did not go beyond my senior year of high school. But I think just find a passion for something you enjoy, something that you love doing. I did enjoy wrestling. The other thing, the friendships and the camaraderie that you build. So I still hang out with a couple of the guys that I wrestled with back in high school. We still get together a few times a year. And so, yeah, I think it's that find something you love doing and then kind of, stick with that and enjoy the friendships that you get out of that.
Yeah. I don't think Kim knew that I was going to ask him about his wrestling
No,
career here on the program here today. A little blast from the past.
I still have my sectional runner up. My senior year is probably my highest accomplishment, which it's allowed me to move on to the regional competition, which that's kind of disappointing because that meant another week of practice, knowing that I was going to wrestle somebody much better than somebody who just beat me. And so another week of practice I had to go to. So that's all right. Good memories.
So McCutcheon High School is very close to Purdue, correct?
Yeah, it's probably, 5 miles away. Yes.
Very similar to me because I went to school here in Central Ohio for high school, just a walking distance away from Ohio State. And then I went to Ohio State for college. What drew you to staying so local at Purdue? Obviously, it's an excellent program with an excellent reputation, But what drew you to staying local when so many people say, I want to leave home for college?
Yeah. I guess I did look at some other colleges in Indiana, Rose-Hulman and some other engineering schools. I ended up getting into the industrial management program at Purdue University. So, I think it was just a matter of the curriculum that they offered, and I wasn't sure I wanted to get into straight up just engineering. So I really liked the industrial management program they had there, which had a little bit of the business, but also had some of the science and mathematics side of it also.
Like I said, Purdue, very well renowned in all of those fields. As you mentioned, your career took you all over the country. And for a lot of your early career, you were a plant manager for various companies. How did your time as a plant manager influence the way you think about operational excellence and leadership?
Yeah, in fact, I'm actually right now, I'm sitting in our plant in Zeeland, Michigan. We recently had somebody that retired who kind of was filling in for the role, and they asked me to come and sit in the seat until they could find a replacement. So I'm actually back in that seat right now. Yeah, so much of this just kind of clicked with, when I got out of college in 1985, and just, the idea of Deming, continuous improvement, and, the idea of the Toyota production system and some of the readings that I did, then it just all kind of clicked and made sense to me. The idea of how you have a system in place to drive improvement, and there's a better way to do it. I remember watching a lot of the Phil Crosby tapes, and where he do the plant tours and things like that. And it's just,
Mhm.
well, this stuff all kind of makes sense. I didn't know it was going to the Gemba, but interacting and going out to the site and going directly observing what's going on out there, and the use of statistics and building relationships and such like that just made it just all kind of made sense to me of the way to run a business. And then, yeah, it's just kind of translated into what I've tried to do as I've been a site manager. So I think I actually got my first site manager job at age 30. I remember a
Yeah.
couple. He's awfully young for that position. I definitely learned a lot over the past 30 years. But yeah, I just really have enjoyed the manufacturing side, actually making something and being able to see that product, and bringing the whole team together for that common goal. So
We've talked I was gonna ask you this a little later on, but since you mentioned Gemba walks, I'm gonna ask you now. We've talked about Gemba walks on the show before. Obviously, it's a very core principle of Lean Six Sigma. How do you make Gemba walks work in your global role? Because you're the global head of operational excellence there at Aurorium. So how are you able to make the Gemba walks work when you're not always able to be on the shop floor?
yeah, for one, so we have some very specific Gemba training that we do. So we have a maturity model assessment that we do for all of our sites. And one of those key elements is a Gemba walk. So we always start off with, what's the intent of doing it, training, and then the practical application of it, and then the feedback loop and reflection on how well it's going. So every time I go to a plant, I definitely go to participate in the Gemba walks that go on, and try to do some coaching along with it, part of that also. But we also provide some very formal structured training as part of that also. That's my favorite part of the day. I always say it's going to the Gemba. So, I look forward to coming to my office and firing up my computer, just drop my bag off right at the desk, walk right out to the plant, and try to interact with, every employee that's on the site by walking the entire site. Here it takes me, probably 45 minutes at the current site. Other ones, it took me over an hour, but always saw the value of that. When people see the site manager, I say, "Gosh, I didn't realize that was so important." So, but, to go up, but yeah, but it would mean, we'd have, some of our operators, the people that are doing the real work, that you could tell they just appreciate that you stop and talk to them and get to know them and things like that. So, the Gimbal walk is, building relationships and asking questions. I really have seen the value in doing that, and what it really means to our employees, that also that it makes them feel valued.
You talked a little bit about reading about Deming, watching tapes. What motivated you to pursue certifications like Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and Master Black Belt? And was there a specific moment or challenge that pushed you in that direction?
Yeah, I remember when I first got out of college, I was living up in the Chicago area, and I'd heard about something called SPC, and it was actually through ASQC. It used to be ASQC back then, so I know they've dropped the C since then. But, yeah, they offered a class on statistical process control, so, I went to that class, and I always enjoyed statistics and the ideas of probability, and the group of high school guys I wrestled with, we also play poker. We always enjoyed that since high school, but just, the idea of the statistics behind that and, the being able to figure things out or predict how things will happen looking at the statistics. So, yeah, the SPC would say, gosh, this control chart, I'd heard about the normal curve, but okay, well, here's how we can plot it out when we have, special cause variation versus common cause variation and in the signal. So I just really enjoyed that part of kind of putting all this, here's what we think, but is that what we think or is that what we know? And if that's what we know, where's the data? So I like the way that it backed it up and made it not just an opinion, but an actual fact or data-based observation that we could quantify.
Kim, do you still play poker?
We still play the same group of high school guys. We get together about 3 or 4 times a year, so it's funny
That's
though.
awesome.
We play we s I think, our we would play for like $100 back in high school. We still play for $100 now, so the stakes have not gone up, but we always enjoy beating each other, so
That's what it's all about, those bragging rights, more so
exactly.
than a little pocket change.
Yep.
Kim, looking back on your career, you had more of a science and math background as an undergrad, but then you went to Western Michigan eventually and earned an MBA in finance with a concentration in finance. How has that shaped the way you approach operational excellence and continuous improvement? Having that MBA with the finance background.
I always say that, you've got to build the culture or else things aren't going to sustain. But at the same time, if you aren't delivering results, they won't see the value of the operational excellence organization at the same time. So I think for the finance side, it helped understand, and I knew a lot of this from being a site manager, picking it up, but just to kind of formalize the financial side of the business and other parts of that. So it was really just an opportunity to learn more. Um, about how the business is ran, and then how can we tie that all together and make sure that they're not separate, but they're equally working together to achieve the ultimate goal of achieving the superior results.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've come across about Lean Six Sigma, about continuous improvement, and how do you help teams or stakeholders see it differently from those misconceptions?
Yeah, I've heard the term the curse of knowledge again. So we're all master black belts, and green belts, and to lead with that in mind that this is new. This is not something that they've done. I always try to think about like when I'm using some of the different systems, whether it's again traction or engine room, but okay, so we use things like Veruzi and Bassware and all that. It's like, well, okay, think about how well am I using those systems that I don't use every day, and kind of lead with that mentality of asking questions, coaching people, and letting them do the work. And yeah, whenever we're doing a project or we're putting a chart together, just always having them share their screen and just have them walk through and do the work also. So it makes it a lot easier to see where they might be struggling or some things that are simple to adjust also.
When you are implementing these programs and you've got people being exposed to these principles for the first time, how is it that you recognize that these principles are really clicking with somebody and maybe see somebody with the potential to really take these principles far and maybe be a potential master black belt themselves?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, different people pick up at different speeds.
Uh huh.
But you can kind of see it in the work that they're doing and the analysis they do and how much they're willing to do on their own and try where I guess, yeah, where they become comfortable to the point that, hey, let me try and do this. Let me try and put this together. Let me try to work on this multiple regression or, okay, I'm trying to figure out which are the factors or which ones are significant. I think when they get to that point now where they say, hey, let me try this. Don't just give me the answer, kind of watch and see what I do and then give me feedback after I've completed the task.
Excellent, excellent. I imagine there are a lot of people that really get exposed to these principles like you. You were reading books. I remember having Chris Spranger on the show not that long ago, another Big Ten
Oh, yeah.
alum who wanted a book about Lean Six Sigma for Christmas. And some people just seem to gravitate to those. So I imagine that part of leadership and coaching is being able to recognize those individuals who are gravitating to these principles and concepts.
Definitely. I mean, that's the other thing. I guess I've tried to focus on the people who are willing to learn and willing to participate and all that. We all have the people that are maybe don't really see the value sometimes of what we're trying to accomplish. And I guess maybe as I've got a little more experience, it's like, I'm going to focus on the people. I'm not going to try to, some people that are not going to change their mind. That's fine. Let them do what they do. But I'm going to work with the people that kind of see or want to see the benefits of the change of what we're trying to implement. And so, yeah, trying to focus on those people that do understand, are starting to grasp the concepts and are willing to learn also.
If you were designing, Kim, a training program for future leaders in operational excellence, what skills or principles would you focus on the most and why?
Yeah, first of all, I would say one thing I've definitely learned is to make sure that you practice before you kind of roll it out. So I'm fortunate. I have one spouse, five children, two son-in-laws. So they're my laboratory or test. So whenever I am rolling out a new concept, I always practice with them. And I think I shared this at one of the conferences also, pictures of my kids doing spaghetti diagrams or running gridlock and things like that. I think it's always good to kind of practice and see what went well with an audience that you're comfortable in, or you don't care so much about their feedback. So, um, but yeah, you have to design it. I think the first thing what's the intent of what we're trying to do? So, how is this going to benefit? You talk about what's in it for me. How is that going to make their work easier? But then also understand that it takes time also for people to truly understand that. So doing one simulation or one practice exercise or running one control chart's not going to do it. It's really the persistence that's going to get you there. So,
One spouse, five children, two sons-in-law.
yep,
That's an audience of 8 right there.
yep.
All 8 of them interested and willing to apply the principles and go that extra mile like you were talking about earlier?
I wouldn't say that. I think they sometimes they'll get on me about. I think everybody you talk to on these podcasts, obviously, we're kind of cut from the same cloth. We all get the eye rolls, and we're trying to 5S something or make sure things are in the standard worker, all that. So I don't even say anything now when people are talking about, hey, I can't find my keys. And it's like, well, if you put your keys back in the same spot every time when you got home from work, you wouldn't have to look for them. But they've heard enough of that stuff. So,
Across your career, from Purdue all the way to now, is there a Lean Six Sigma tool that stands out to you as being underused, but really powerful when applied correctly? And what is that tool, and why do you think it is so effective?
yeah, I would say it's the one you don't use when you're doing a project, whichever one you try to skip. So again, if you try to skip the find phase and not have a good project charter and have clearly thought about what you're going to try to accomplish and make sure everybody understands specifically the starting point and what the problem we're trying to solve is, if you don't do that, use that tool, clear problem definition problem, that's going to cause a problem. As you move into the measure phase, if you don't have a good MSA in place, if you don't have a good data collection plan in place, if you haven't spent the time to train the people collecting the data, that's going to be the most important tool. As you move into analyze, if we're trying to jump to a solution and we're not going through and identifying all the different alternatives. And I think that's a big one we often do is with our projects. I always not encourage, but make the belts. Make sure you list out all the different things, all the different ideas that you've at least looked at so that people realize I didn't just jump to a solution. I've considered these other items also. The improve phase is again, make sure that we've got good standard work that people can follow that, if we don't, I think sometimes we try to roll out too broadly instead of piloting in a particular area. And I think then people become frustrated or it's just too much to manage. In the control phase, just not having good standard work, not handing over the process to the process owner, and not having a monitor and response plan in place that's truly followed. And to me, it needs to become part of your lean daily management system until you've proven that the capability is high enough that we don't have to worry about this. whatever tool you skip is going to be the one that's most important.
It's not the most important part of the show. That's why I'm definitely not skipping this short break. MoreSteam's enterprise process improvement platform includes the tools, training, and software you need to transform your organization into a problem solving powerhouse. Join the ranks of Fortune 500 companies that trust MoreSteam for their enterprise process improvement. Our integrated approach featuring training, project tracking and execution, simulations, and statistical analysis empowers your team to create a culture where structured problem solving becomes second nature. Visit moresteam.com to learn more. And now back to my conversation with Kim Koning. Kim, this has been a tremendous conversation. I want to talk to you. You mentioned being at the conference, and that's the first time I really got to meet you in person was at the Morse Team Best Practices for Operational Excellence conference last year. Got to spend some time chatting with you. What is that like? I mean, when you've been a master black belt since what, 2020?
Yes, yep, I got mine during COVID. That was one of the benefits of COVID is I had time to focus on finishing up my master black belt. Yes.
Which is a tremendous accomplishment. And before that, you've been a black belt since when?
About 2004. Yep.
So you have been immersed in this field for over 2 decades. When you get together at a conference, at a meeting with like minded individuals, people in the same field from across all sorts of industries, what is that like for somebody at your level of expertise to speak with other people at that same level of expertise who are maybe doing what you do in a completely different field or industry?
Yeah, to me, I look forward to that conference as much as anything is work related throughout the entire year. Just a chance to interact with like-minded people with similar goals, but also similar problems that they're trying to solve. So to me, that's one of the biggest part is understanding what problems they've ran into because I probably had the same ones. What kind of things have they done to either solve the problem or they're continuing to struggle with, and what have they learned from that to take away from that? But yeah, it's a great opportunity because you're different industries, different levels of practitioners. It's great to see the examples of the projects and just the way it's well rounded. It's not just specific tools, but it's the cultural side of also and the people side of it also. So definitely learn a lot of that. Yeah, I think about Maria Fry did a podcast early. It is. It's
Mhm.
truly. It's about the people. It's not the process too, but being able to understand it and develop. That's the other thing. Developing relationships with other people that attend the conference. Also, I know Stephanie Chen has a group that she invited me to join in for her quarterly group too. So I've been able to participate in that. Again, she's from Wendy's, but participate with her group and just to continue to learn also. So it's now become more than just a once a year. Now it's at least 4 times a year. I have a chance to talk to other, I always say, like-minded people that are thinking the same thing and have the same challenges.
That is absolutely tremendous, Kim. One thing I've started to do on the show when I have somebody with your level of expertise, a master black belt, and I started this with the episode with Chris Sprenger a few episodes ago, is I've got an expert here, and I know there's other experts who are listening. I am not a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, but I can ask a question that is appropriate for a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. And the good thing for you or anybody is you can answer the question, and I'm not sure that you've got the right answer, so I will nod along and smile. But would you like to take the challenge of a real technical question like I asked Chris Sprenger?
I'm always up for a challenge because, again, even if
All
I
right.
fail and can't answer it, at least I'm going to learn something from it. So,
All right. Kim, chemical manufacturing can be tricky with all its complexity and variability. How do you adapt tools like SciPoc or process capability analysis, CPK, to manage those challenges effectively?
so, so obviously with SciPoc, it's important to map out the entire process. And I think the key there, we do this with all of our green belts and yellow belts as they go through to truly understand what are all the inputs to the process, and then also what are the outputs in the customers and what are they looking to expect. So I think the SciPoc provides a good high level overview. And I always say to reflect back as you start to work on your project. What are all the different variables that can enter in to that project as you're trying to improve your project? Why? From a capability standpoint, I think a big part of that is, do we truly know what the capability of our processes are? And then comparing that to what the customer, the specifications they're looking for. So, yeah, I've seen some charts too where people will put customer specs on a control chart. I think that's a good sign. No, no, that's not right. We put control limits on control charts, not customer limits. We may obviously want to know what the customer limits are, but it kind of ties together the voice of the process and the voice of the customer together to say, do we have capability? Do we have a stable process, first of all, that's capable of meeting customer expectations? And then if it's not, then what action are we going to take to try to improve that? And for all of our projects, we use the Sigma level calculator, and we use that to make sure that we understand before improvements and after improvements to see whether or not we're making a change. And also, does that meet the customer expectations?
I can say that was truly an outstanding answer, Kim.
And you don't even know, right? So, and I'm sure Maria or Chris or some of the other people I've worked with that will call me out on that, which I hope they do if I got that wrong. So.
I'm pretty sure you didn't. I'm positive you didn't.
I did it.
Um,
One thing you kind of asked about, I wanted to make sure I talked about also. One was the other part. We talked a little about what motivated you to get into the idea of Lean Six Sigma and implementing continuous improvement. So, kind of a
yeah.
funny story. My kind of aha moment is back in the early 2000s. We were doing a joint project with actually one of our competitors. They were going to
Uh-huh.
build the molds, and we were going to do the injection molding. As we started to go through, we did our PowerPoint presentation. This is us. Here's what we do, and all our capabilities. And then went over to the other company, and he's like, "Hey, we've implemented Lean Six Sigma. Here's the improvements we made. Here's our structured problem solving. Here's how we're rolling it out throughout our organization and all that." And it's kind of like we were asked no more questions after that. That the customers put all their focus right on them. And then I remember after the meeting, we're walking out, and our vice president of sales, he kind of leaned over to me and said, "Kim, I don't know what this Lean Six Sigma stuff is, but we sure do need some, don't we?" So, so that was kind of that was kind of my aha moment that, yeah, you know what? There's a different way, probably a better way to run a business and drive improvement. And so that was really the first time I heard Six Sigma.
Your aha moment was definitely inspired by some commercial realities there.
Oh yeah, yes, yep.
Kim, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. You wanted to drop some nuggets of wisdom. I can assure you there have been many. This has been an outstanding conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Hopefully, in the future, we can have you on the show again. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in August for this year's MoreSteam
Oh,
conference.
definitely. I'm looking forward. It's going to be at Wendy's this year, so yeah, looking
Once
forward to
again,
going there and yeah, enjoying that. So thank you for the invite. Always glad to participate.
excellent. Thank you so much, Kim. And thank you for listening to Quality Time with More Steam. You can email the show at qualitytime@moresteam.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast service. Also, please go ahead and visit our website, moresteam.com, to learn about the software and tools that can help you solve problems, eliminate waste, and do things better. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more Quality Time with More Steam. Thanks again.